Thanks, Tim. Yeah, so I think the first thing that's clear again here is that the automakers, they themselves are very clear that in their annual reports that connectivity is a key strategic area for the industry. So if you read, the Toyota annual report starts out with 4 pages, just on the first 4 pages of the annual report is on connectivity. The chairman of the board of every automotive company talks about connectivity as one of these key strategic areas that's driving the industry forward. So there's obviously on the very top that connectivity is driving the major development of the industry, together with automation and electrification and shared services. Just to give a quick quote from Daimler annual report, it says this: in today's digital age, innovative connectivity solutions and software services have become a part of the core business of Daimler Trucks as never before. So it's just very clear that this is really going to create a lot of value for the industry. But as Matthias said, it's not obvious that the fundamental development of the underlying standard itself will be developed by the industry. It's very important that they participate and that they will work on this, the kind of vehicle layer to implement it. So the standard is an enabling technology that generates a huge amount of value, tens or hundreds of billions. Some estimate up to trillions in the next 10 to 15 years. And so we understand that this will create a lot of value. And as Jim said, it's all about who is going to capture this value. And so there's obviously a very strong competition between the existing digital platforms like Apple and Google to try to capture the value in cars, because the car is becoming the next big ecosystem like the smartphone.
Thank you. Interesting. George, you also have a lot of experience from a world of standards development that has no connection to SEPs at all. Also cars will have a lot more software and other standards that may not be an intellectual property challenge. What is your thought here? How important will the IP and standards and IP and essential patents remain for connectivity?
Yeah, so across industries, there are really 2 types of standards that we're talking about, right? There are general purpose connectivity standards, and then there are industry specific ones. So general purpose standards for something like a vacuum cleaner or a refrigerator, any Wi-Fi chip or Bluetooth chip will work fine. And those white goods manufacturers, there's no value, there's no economic argument for them to get involved in the standardization process if they can simply buy a component that will work in their product without any significant adaptation. In other areas, there's a need for industry-specific modifications, and so you see special, standards groups that will emerge undoubtedly for 5G, for spacecraft, for submarines, other things that are more specific. And again, we see this for the smart grid and a variety of other technologies that are being developed today. With those specific requirements, you do need input from the customer side in order to develop the standard, and those customers would be well advised to get that expertise and contribute it to optimize the standard for their purposes. But in both of these cases, there is this classical divide in standardization between producers and customers. And part of the design of SDO decision-making processes builds in this idea of balance of interests. Some SDOs even have a requirement that you need both producers and customers in a technical committee before voting on a standard. That customer input is essential to optimizing the standards, even for general purpose technologies. So you really do need some input, some technical input from that customer side, even when you're just talking about a general purpose technology. So it would be advisable.
Can I just add to what George has been saying?
Please go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, no, he raised a lot of really great points about having customer input, which harkens back to sort of my prior statement in that, yeah, there probably is no value for the white good manufacturer to get involved in the standard setting process, but gosh, it sure would be good to know if, refrigerator manufacturer Acme Corp would benefit from some tweak in the standard to maybe more efficiently scan barcodes or to more efficiently communicate to some warehouse somewhere. So I think, maybe in the short term, you won't have as much participation by some of these parties, but I think as particularly on the implementation side of the discussion, the more we go along and the more intelligent they become, I think the more and more they're going to want to be involved in the standard setting process. Because as everybody on this panel knows, SDOs, specifically related to cellular and I'm sure other technologies, they're system processes, they're system development. So it's everything from battery enhancements to antenna to communication waveforms, the radio stack, on and on and on to the base station, and you created this entire system. And I think it would behoove anybody that plays in that ecosystem to be on the table, to be at the table rather than on the table. And so, and that kind of goes to what I think Matthias mentioned, or what you had observed that Matthias had said from the beginning of this topic. But then talking about this bullet specifically, I don't necessarily see R&D budgets shifting to connectivity technologies, but maybe the implementation of connectivity technologies, at least in the short term, until these implementers of these cellular standards and different other standards become more attuned and adept at the technology. I think of it like the camera coming onto the phone. There's a lot of, now all of a sudden phone manufacturers have camera patents. It'll be very similar to now all of a sudden there'll be white good label manufacturers having cellular patents, which I don't think we're far away from, if not already occurring.
No, I have two comments. To that. First of all, a comment to what Jim just said. The automotive industry has very clearly understood that we need to get our requirements into the cellular standardization process. We have specific requirements in terms of latency, bandwidth, for example, for autonomous driving, that you guys won't know. We do. That was the reason why 4 years ago, exactly 4 years ago, the 5GAA was founded, where almost all big players are in there. The task of that standardization group is not creating technology standards, is defining the requirements that will then be input into 3GPP for 5G development. And that makes a lot of sense. The second comment that I have is this statement by Bo. I believe we have to be very careful when we say communication technology creates billions of dollars of value. I would say communication technology enables others to create billions of dollars with their inventions. And yes, there is some value, and there may be a lot of value to the communication technology in itself. But let's face it, 95% of our cars, for example, have a communication module by now. Maybe a 3G module only in the older cars, maybe a 4G module in the newer ones, and 5G will come. So basically, there wouldn't be the big change there. But what will change is that the car becomes a thing in the Internet of Things. There's an entire new infrastructure, and value is created both somewhere in the cloud, on the device itself. There will be some value created. There will be a lot of value created by organizing traffic, for example. And we don't really know where value will be created 10 years from now, and where basically the licenses for patents being used should actually be charged, where the royalty should come from. It will not only be what it is right now, that that companies, patent owners, try to get money from those who build devices or head units or cars or whatever. Value will be created in totally different places and on totally different abstraction levels.